Hello, and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and today we're speaking with an absolutely legendary cinematographer, DP Don Morgan, ASC. He's worked in the industry for quite some time now and has pretty much had his hand on every multicam show that matters ever. I was going through his IMDb, which is incredibly long, but let me just pull out a couple, just some choice shows. Home Improvement, Last Man Standing, The Connors, The Upshaws, which he was promoting today, The Ranch, a few episodes of Wild 'N Out. He shot BattleBots, he shot Moesha, he shot the Boy Meets World pilot and the Nanny pilot, a whole bunch of episodes of Mr. Belvedere, The Jeffersons. Who's better than Don Morgan? So I was just absolutely thrilled that I got the opportunity to talk to him today, and so I really think you're going to enjoy it. Nice little casual conversation with a man who is nominated for a bunch of Emmys this year. So, it's pretty exciting year for him, as if every year isn't exciting for him. He's got a great job. If this is your first time hearing Frame and Reference, this is actually a weekly podcast that you can listen to over at the Frame and Reference podcast feed. So if you're interested in conversations with cinematographers, sort of talking about cinematography, go ahead and subscribe to Frame and Reference on your favorite podcast app and give it a listen. It's exactly like this, just elsewhere. But you will be getting your, monthly dose of it here on the Art of the Frame podcast feed. So pitch aside, I am absolutely over the moon to be able to introduce my conversation with Don Morgan, ASC. To start, I ask everyone the same question, and that is just, how did you get started? I understand you were a musician at first, kind of in life.
Yeah, my my musical background was something I thought was going to happen, and starting off, my dad was a musician. He played with Cab Calloway. He was a bass player.
Wow.
So during early life of junior high school, I was in a variety of rock bands, and I thought we were out there ready to get it all done, and played some really neat venues. There's like during the Jimi Hendrix time, in 69 and 70, our school, my high school, was a very competitive in bands. So that was something that I thought was my calling. But, in the meantime, I took architecture in high school and first year of college, graphic arts. And so I just always felt there was something to fall back on, because, sometimes you're not making the money that you'd like to make. The band lived together in a house together, and so they didn't want to play outside anybody else's music except for original stuff. So jobs were far and in between. The disco thing was happening, so rock stuff there was a time where you couldn't get work. So a buddy of mine, I was cleaning Everclean building maintenance to fill in the gaps, and then a buddy of mine asked me, "Hey, do you want to?" There's a job. Norman Lear is doing some stuff over at KTTV, and I'm moving. Kenny is moving over to the Messenger, and there's an opening in the mailroom. So I said, "Yeah, well, that's during the day, and then I can do my music at night." So that kind of worked out. Went for the interview, got the gig, and but what was really interesting is being able to do your rounds, and then meeting different people in different departments. And there's a whole nother life in elsewhere than music. So during that time, I was working on my communication skills, by meeting people, reading people. Do they want to talk? They're busy. And I thought that was a real good lesson. And so it would take me 20 minutes to do my route, but they thought 40 minutes was enough time. So what I would do for those 10 and 15 minutes, I would go and sit in the audiences and watch what they were doing on stage. Didn't really understand what they were doing, but it was always kind of interesting. You go by the lighting shops and the audio shops and meet the guys that are fixing the equipment, and there was conversation. And I liked being outside. The guys, and especially the lighting shop, they're fixing the lamps in the sun, and I'm downstairs in the basement. And so there was an opportunity to get a job on stage. So I was focusing on audio, but lighting was always something there. It was kind of cool. So they asked if I quit the mailroom. Then about 2 weeks later, I got a call. Listen, there's a job as far as on the lighting crew. So I said, well, I need to work because I haven't worked in 2 weeks. And that first day, I'd walk up to the desk and look at the print. And so all my architecture background would just kind of take over. And I said, oh, I can read this. This all makes sense, what they're doing. And look up high, look at the print. And so that was really kind of a very, very interesting day. They wouldn't let me plug anything in. I'm just kind of just pushing the ladder around, just looking. And then when the set was all rigged and we brought up the first light, no lights are on the stage. Now you got that 45-degree Paramount perfect angle. And I said, I'm hung out, man. I really want this. Yeah. So at that point in time, I knew that it was the band gig was going to be cut short. And so I tried, but then if you're in this business, okay, I'll be out at 7 o'clock. Well, when 10 o'clock comes around, and they were saying, well, listen, the rehearsal still, we're waiting for you to come to the rehearsal. And so that was just kind of normal. Instead of an 8-hour call, it ends up being 10 or 12 or 14 hours. So I said, listen, I'm gonna have to quit. And that really hurt to do that. But ever since then, I just had those guys kind of tell me just once. And so I always would go in early. As far as work ethic, go in a few minutes early, walk the stage, because there were 5 stages over at KTTV. And Norman Lear was doing Maude, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times.
Just a great setup over there.
All the, and so they needed people. And so what was kind of neat is you'd be on a crew of 5 people. Well, 2 of the guys were lighting directors and 3 of the guys were electricians. But then another 2 days towards the end of the week, there were 2 other guys who'd be lighting directors, and the guys that were lighting directors were electricians. So there was always this camaraderie, which was really interesting, that you would learn, everybody would critique, and it would be like a game on how you are progressing. And the gentleman that was teaching us, his name is Tommy Shamp. He gave us the basics. Tommy did Playhouse 90s and was his way of doing things were using multiple cameras, lighting for multiple cameras. And so those were the basics. And so with that being said, he said, do what you need to do, but that this will work or get you out of a bind. And so I then started watching black and white movies, and so I wanted to bring a little more contrast and bring something a little new, you know, within the four camera world. Um, and then also you're learning how to your 3-point lighting, and just different types of lights, the different quality of lights, and so all of that started to fall into place. And then my graphic arts, getting using color separation and transparencies, the f-stops all kind of came together. And so I've taken a couple of photo journalism classes over at Santa Monica College. So that was something that related to moving cinematography. So things, just little bits and pieces over time. And then they moved me up to gaffer. So I was doing turnarounds at night. And then within a year and a half, I was the lighting director on Good Times. So that was something that was really very interesting. But it was, I look at some of the reruns today, and my shoot, it was really rough. But so that's been that was kind of the beginning, and then you just then Tommy, Norman Lear went over to Universal. They left the lot, and then I started. They brought over Three's Company, so I did about 4 or 5 of those episodes. But then Tommy said, "Listen, do you want to get your film card?" And I said, "You have to put in your 1 week notice now." I was having 4 weeks of vacation. I was on staff. Feet up on the table. I could have, stayed with that. But I said, you know what, this is an opportunity. So I said yes. So we passed that show off and had an opportunity. There was a gentleman that was doing 2 shows, the show Gloria and Silver Spoons. And so Tommy walked me up to the stage that Monday, and I walked through stage 33, and those doors really looked very big. The lot is huge, and there was just a lot of stuff going on that I had never seen before. And so having that be my first, and I got to say, being a lighting director, a lighting designer is a lot different than being the cinematographer. And I have to admit, I didn't really know what a cinematographer was, and or what the responsibility was. And that first day was one of the most nerve-wracking, but I did okay because I had an operator there that was really good, Vito Gimbalvo, just kind of whispered in the ear, this is what we need to do. And so at lunchtime, I would go to the different stages and see what the guys were doing then. There was Spielberg stuff. John Alonzo was doing Scarface, and I had met him. I was the in-house lighting director over at Fox, and he said, if he's ever on any of the lots, please come over. So I knew he was over there, so I dropped in on him. He was very happy. And so that was an incredible hour lunch of learning, and it just been, still till today, you're only as good as your last shot. And I'm always trying to stay one step ahead of the, and just try to make it and still have fun. So
yeah. It's funny. I used to teach at New York Film Academy on the Universal backlot, and
okay.
And so I've heard a lot of that. You work in the industry long enough, and not saying I have, but like you hear a lot of like, oh yeah, Hollywood used to be like more magical, more better, whatever. And then you hear stories like that. It's like, yeah, I was hanging out on the back lot. They're shooting Scarface, so I went and said hi.
Yeah, Spielberg had amazing stories going. They were doing, and so there was a variety of different DPs that were doing those shows, and it was gentleman James Craig, God bless him, he passed away early on. Had really good vision, and the now I forgot who I was talking about. Yeah, but having the opportunity and being able to take advantage of it was very cool. But I got a little brushback because a lot of the folks that were doing features were, oh, I'm doing features.
Right.
Yeah.
Features and television so, never hung out.
Yeah. And so there was that kind of energy in the air. Oh, you're one of those DPs that do the television stuff. And so I'm proud of it because, hey, it was $6 more an hour over there at Universal than it was I was getting on Fox. And so I'm a happy guy,
Sure. It's you actually jogged my memory a little bit earlier, because I've always, when people say like, how'd you start? I was like, oh, I used to be a drummer, but I always loved film, yada yada. But actually, you jogged my memory. Back in high school, I was drumming, but I was never in a band. I was in band, band class, and my dad was a drum corps guy. But my friend Danny was in a metal band, and we would go to different venues, like literally playing in church practice rooms, which was kind of funny, but just testing that out. And my first gig, so to speak, was shooting photos of that band, and I completely forgot that was like I had to buy a camera to go do that.
Right.
And that's what got me more into imaging, because at the time I was just like, I was too young to know what a filmmaker, any film job was. I was 13 or whatever, so I was like, I want to make movies, fuck it, directing, whatever. But yeah, that's funny. Thanks for that. What you had mentioned the 4 camera. I always heard it as 3 cameras, but what were some of those things that you were taught that got you out of sticky situations? Because I think obviously everyone says, oh, lighting for 1 camera is way easier than 2 and 3, but 4 is intense. Seems intense.
You just said something. Little history on the 3 camera. During Lucy and those types of shows, those were 3 cameras, and right. So and that was a film term on the major lots, and so that's how they would approach the multi-camera things. Now, when Norman started to do his stuff, it was always 4 camera. And so when we started over on using pedestals, that's more of a television. You've got TD that's switching. No, you got a switcher. Then you got a TD who's sitting next to the AD. AD is in the booth. And then director is clicking. And this is doing a live show. But then when I went over to Universal, it was a whole different beast, because now you've got all these film terms and the way film is being done. The AD is on stage, which was the stage manager in television. So you got to, okay, this is something new. Okay, director works on the floor. Well, at the beginning, they did have trucks up in there, and people were in the trucks trying to bring the television onto the lot there. But it really became really comfortable when the director is on the floor, and now they would call me the cinematographer. And so I'm still, what was really interesting, you've got a camera coordinator, and they keep track of all the shots because everything's rapid. You've got,
right,
within a half hour of live show, you've got almost 300 shots. And so to take time, go through me, ultimately I have the final say of continuity, look, and everything else that's necessary. But I'm watching everything for sets, people, close-ups, um, uh, boom shadows. It just there's so many things that we have to go through that I've got my own little switcher that doesn't go to the audience, and you've got an audience switcher doing a rough cut. And so I just felt that we have to light for multiple angles. But then, within that space, what I try to do is keep my lighting off the wall. So then I can create my depth. Now, with the passage of time, concepts change. You see something in a feature, how can I adapt that into a multi-camera situation? So that's always been a challenge, and so with the new inventions of new cameras, different types of cameras, textures, color saturation, all the things that you want, that brings a look that I think is really really fun, and I've had a lot of fun with it, experimenting. And so that's some of the things that I kind of look at.
Because I think it's, especially coming from narrative or just anything else, I think it's too easy to briefly look at a set. You think of multicam stuff as like that sort of Friends, everything is lit, there is no shadow. How do you kind of go through lighting a set to, because I watched a few episodes of the Upshaws, and like you do get some really good depth and shadow, and it doesn't look like necessarily a traditional multicam sort of set in that regard. It's got a very filmic look to it.
I work from outside in, and so I try to get in on the when they're putting the sets together, as far as design with the production designer. Like in the Upshaws, there were 2 windows there that weren't there before I asked them to put 2 windows there. Right. And I was surprised that they didn't have anything, because the living room there, which is really kind of interesting, is like a craftsman house. Mm-hmm. So I used to live in a craftsman house here in Los Angeles. And so when I saw the back wall and it didn't have any kind of window there, I said, well, can we put a window here? It needs to be at least 5x3. So then I can bring in source, and now playing with color, that adds. I've been really into using color temperature different from outside inside. So as they come closer, those things really kind of change. And so being camera 2-dimensional, and our monitors are 2-dimensional. Yeah, 3D, but
I think 3D's dead. I don't know if that's coming back again. It got too many shots.
Right. So that really is something, but sometimes using the back cross is kind of a go-to type thing. So there's areas that I do use back cross key, because now you've got to leave room for the boom to come in, and it's going all over. So you want to get underneath that for frontal. So depending on what kind of light you use, and I've just found that as they move into different areas, I use theater technique, where what's not being used now shifts in color, shifts in intensity. So now as they come over here, these areas are constantly, it's constantly moving, and so moving just intensity. So your focus is on them, and the backgrounds kind of go out of focus or change color, time of day, but within the play itself, doors go down because they're not at the doors. They don't need to be lit. So these are little things that I've taken a couple of theater classes in New York and utilize some of what they do in. I sat in Gilbert Hemsley in the New York City Opera was out here, and just sitting with him as he was designing. I don't know how I met him. I was doing some show at the some award show, and they came in, and so I asked if I could come back and see what they're doing. He says, "Yeah, sure." So just seeing that really gave me some color ideas of because with theater you're really dealing with the wide shot, but they use color in order to create that other dimension. And so I said, I was just thinking, I was going, well, I'm going to try some of this stuff. So that's been some things that like last year, well, not last year, a year before that.
I do that too.
They allowed me to play with the show on the ranch on Netflix. And that was another one that was extreme. I mean, they wanted it to be the darkest comedy on TV. And so we did 80 episodes, and that was really even more challenging. But having the Upshaws, people of color, try to do, and you know what's funny is, not that funny, I wanted it not to be so saturated, the Upshaws. But when I originally went in and colored it, they said that they, meaning you've got showrunners, you've got the network, you've got producers, and there's a list of people, and then me. So
right.
So they wanted it a little more, so I had to go back in and color time the show a little more than what I saw it as. So, but I guess it worked out. You know, I'm happy that my colleagues, you know, gave me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I about the sort of grade on it. What are you shooting on? Alexa, probably.
No. The Aries system, they are not ready for shooting multi-camera live.
They just came out with that camera, didn't they?
Right.
Like a week ago.
and so I'm using the Sony F55 system from Panavision.
Oh, okay. They're always. I love that camera.
And so with that being said, what's really kind of interesting is, at least with the Upshaws, we're shooting in 4K, okay, and it is S-Log, so that gives me a better
dynamic range.
Yeah, dynamic range to play with. Now, say if I was doing something for Fox or ABC, they're not really interested in shooting those shows in 4K. I've tried to do that as much as I can, but they only broadcast in 720. But at least with the Upshaws, we were able to do the full range and plus HDR. There's a whole another pass that what they want us to do is just do one pass, and you grade both 4K and HDR. And that I'm not a fan yet. I would like to do just a separate, but it's cost too much money. And these shows, as they put it, the only way to make money is do the minimum. And that's why sometimes the Rec 709, and you're really color grading on set, and they don't like to do much in post. So we do have, we kind of put it under a different line item for us to get in there and do some color grading. And,
It was interesting because I turned it on, and my TV is like an HDR TV, and it just goes Dolby Vision, and I was like, really?
Right. But it's funny because I really haven't seen any of the finals in the total Dolby Vision, because I asked to really color grade it in 4K, because if you do it in HDR, it won't look the same as 4K.
Right.
So I'm a little more comfortable with that, unless we're going to do another pass, and it's a little bit too cartoon. Now, what you're saying is, some of the other shows, like for Nickelodeon and Disney, they are bright and cartoony,
Right.
and they've got even their own little matrix settings that is just a flick of a switch, and everything is vibrating on set and
Right.
on a monitor. I set in for a buddy of mine who was a couple of weeks ago, Nickelodeon, and I'd never really done Nickelodeon show, and it was just kind of interesting, with that. And in my eye, I couldn't get used to it. It's like zzz.
Yeah, it's funny. That took me a long time to figure out what it meant, because when people would describe digital as electric looking, it
Right.
took me a while in like film school to understand what that meant. That like insane vibrance that film just doesn't or whatever. I'm using shorthand that I don't even like, because when people are like, "Oh, film does this," it's like, no, your memory of film does that.
Right. Memory of film. Right. Well, it's nice to be able to use the newer cameras, and they actually, a lot of the producers and networks want to go as much as possible towards the filmic look.
Yeah.
I always try, when I go in for a meeting, I try to pick their brains, because I don't have okay, I read the script, I see what they're up to, but they've already picked the production designer. He's already done basically the set. And so I just need to find out what their visual of what they are looking for. I ask a movie, or, hopefully not another TV show, or something maybe single camera. Because I could come in with my little stack of what I've envisioned it, and that's maybe be nothing, but I could use the gig. So I try to find out first what they're doing, and then I adapt what their visuals are, and it's worked pretty good sometimes.
Yeah, there's a really great texture to the Upshaws. Was that sort of figured out in post, or is that just the camera naturally kind of has that almost grain to it?
Well, what we did is, let me see, I did that over at level 3. Fred is my colorist over there, and I think with the combination of no detail, and using I think I used the glimmer glass.
There you go.
Maybe number 2. It might be number one or 2. I forgot which ones. See, because of how we shoot, it's all zoom lenses, okay? And so the outside cameras are mostly your crosses, close-ups, but nothing really comes any more than 2Ts, unless it's something that they really want, but we try not to get that close. But you're into the 80s, between the 80 and 120 on the ends. And now the inside camera are 20-to-1s. And so what's kind of nice with the outside ones, I'm going back to that, is being in the middle of that lens. I love the 11-to-1, and it's just soft, and it just falls off, and right in the middle there's it's got a sweet spot. And so, but when we go to our middle 2 cameras, you can see the difference. So I use a little heavier diffusion on that. So if I go with ones on the outside, because they don't need them in the middle, I'll go with maybe a 2 on the inside. So when they're cutting back and forth, that does match. And as far as the grain, yes, I did put a slight film grain that is so slight, but just a little bit of something there. And it just
I think
that's
it helps.
yeah, we that's it's just something that I like to do. But like on the ranch, we used uh, what's it called? Oh,
Like
uh,
Cinegrain or
it's live grain. I'm sorry.
live grain. There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, live grain, and I was using a 16 millimeter on that show. But the cost of that per episode was too much to do on the Upshaws. So within the our post board, they've got a similar. So I didn't even want to really see it. So we just kind of throw in about 1 point, you know, 0 0.1, 0 0.2, and just enough to just add a little something. And I don't think that even the producers know that it's there, but they know that something looks a little different.
Yeah, because I just did a review of a program called Dehancer, and it's basically try to film emulation and stuff. But they have their own little grain algorithm. I was kind of comparing it to Resolves, and I do think that because of how smooth digital is, just adding, just like you're saying, just like a little bit of grain, because too much and it
Yeah,
starts to
then
become pastiche. But
right, right, right.
it,
Yeah,
but just a little bit gives your eyes something to grab onto.
yeah, that's always that's fun. You know, not to use it too much, but if it calls for it, what's nice is everybody. I just have one skin tone issue that when we get into the darker tones in the corners, um, you sometimes see it, and so I try to bring it back to where you don't. I'm not trying to notice it. It's even with the filtration, you know.
Right.
But it's not a vibrant show. I try to keep it in a pastel tone, and so that was something that I maybe I did a little bit too much, so that they wanted a little more life in the skin tones. It's definitely, you know.
Yeah. How has new light technology changed the way that you light your sets? Because back in the day, we were all using Fresnels and hard lights and
Well,
whatnot, and get a hot ass set.
yeah, I do a combination of both. Sometimes the there's different types of now that the chips that they're manufacturing are really close together. So I could use a couple of different types of LED technology, and it works. But I've been I like some of the 2x2 panels that are real thin, and I put them together, and so you can put them up right up next to the wall, and so that gives you a wraparound that really is kind of cool. So, and then I can dial in color balance, camera, and then you really see the color change on set if I wanted a 4,000 outside and 3,200 or even 2,900 inside. Um, there's you see that couple hundred degrees a difference, and so that's a lot of fun and help save on gels. And but there's nothing really like a Fresnel, 10K at 40 feet. Not the intensity, but just what it does hardwise. And I've just been. I always like to keep that in the back. A nice cold lens that's way out there. You don't need the intensity, but you can see it as a kick, especially on dark skin.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of it, but the presence of it throwing from across the way is just really incredible.
Do you have any tips on filming darker skin tones that people could, use in their day-to-day
Well,
cinematography?
what's interesting. I think what you have to do is it's is playing towards the reflection, talking with makeup to see the reflection of a light sometimes will give you separation. And that's what it basically is. It depends. People of color come in so many different shades and intensities, and some darker folks absorb more light than others. Is sometimes you do have to put in more, and it's color and the size of the source, where you can, if you use a smaller light, it does, for some reason, sometimes it doesn't dig in, and you want to make sure that you see the reflection in the eyes. And if you've got to, once again, reflect, having makeup, sometimes their faces are darker than their arms and skin tone, or their necks are lighter. So what I ask makeup to do is look at that if they need that lighter tone into the 3 or 4 points on the face, where they don't need a lot, but just enough to kind of help, because they'll be, you have person of color, and then a white person, or just a blonde person next to each other, and that is it. Listen, it's not easy, but then again, it's how you set your camera up also. To I try not to. I keep it at 90% or and never at 0. So that gives me a little bit of latitude. So in post, I may have to put a window, pull down, or take up, And so with that being said, but I get calls for all different kinds, and so I love to look at folks and what their skin complexion is, and that has something to do with it also. That you can't hit too much on the side, because if they have indentions or they're older, okay, so now there's you're weighing this out.
Yeah. No, that's what was I gonna say? Oh, the color temperature thing. So where do you generally ride on your camera versus your lights? Because for me, I've found recently that it doing like a really aggressive 5600 back, 3200 key just looks too unnatural. It doesn't seem to look correct on digital.
No. Once again, I've been playing around 37, 30 to about 4,000 for outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they come close to a window, it's just a little cooler. I'll play inside 29, white balance between 29 and 30, 29 and 3,000, someplace right through there. Okay. And then sometimes I'll fill with just ever so slight, not use gel, but just bring up stuff, my fill light to 60%. So that's running at somewhere around 24, 25. And that adds a little bit of warmth, and bringing what's kind of, I bring up the bottoms of all the front off the body. And so it's just this that I play with. So if they cut to a wide shot, now it just looks like there's a fourth wall there. And so all this is happening in motion when they go to this point. My 3-point lighting changes based on where they are in the set. And we do use a lot of lights, but once again, as they move, I move and paint.
Yeah, that's sounds dumb, but you forget when you're not working at a level like you are, you forget lighting cues exist. Because I don't have a team that I don't get to ride with a DMX board every day,
Yeah, well, that's something that I grew when I grew up, there was a saying that was just don't dim it, scrim it, So there's that also that I try sometimes not to, because you'll I went to this one set and I had this whole separate crew, and they lit all their lamps at 50%. That's what they started with. And so I just didn't know how to work with that. I just said, no, 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 no. We got to bring them up full, and then I'll work down. He says, well, then you won't have enough if you need to add. And this is how this one team worked. And so the color temperature at 50%, and then you're bringing it up to, to 80 or 90. That's a big change. And so now you're dealing with other issues. So I like to start hot, and then scrim it. And then if I need to take it down 10%, then you don't see it. And sometimes, because we work at sometimes a frantic pace, I have to do that,
Yeah.
It's something I don't want to. Then you got to deal with noise. It snowballs into, the buzzing but then what's nice with the LED technology, you could bring it down and at 3200 and take it down to 50%. And that's a whole different texture of 50% of 3200 without scrimming it. And so that's what I do like using some of the LED technology.
Are you using a color meter at all, or are you kind of just trusting of the sources? Because that's a new fascination I've got.
I have I do a lot of stuff with my eye, but I do have a variety of my meters in my little case. And my crew, God bless them, they just bought me the top of the line digital Spectra. And so
yeah,
the book on that is, there's just so many things. I'm still, I've had it now for about 4 months. There's just too many things with this thing, and God bless them. And I've been playing with it, but there's a lot of technology out there that I still need to get this meter together.
Yeah, a lot of charts.
Yeah, a lot of charts, but it's interesting just because the LED technology, you can dial in so many different colors, and based on a day base, 5600 base or 3200 base, like different types of projects, I'll white balance at 4000. And so the cameras respond better to LED color and some of the moving lights. When I'll do, say, a live show, like a award show or something like that, my base light is 4000, and there's just nothing peaks. It just, you've got pure color, and it just looks incredible. And I noticed I'll go through people's set when they're doing a single camera. Like, my wife is a makeup artist, and so she takes the readout of what they're doing with the camera. And so I'll look at the outside, and the information is 4000, but 3200, and you can see the difference. And there's a lot of folks out there playing with, and I think you've got to really watch out, because you can get into trouble if you're, I did this a little independent. I was just there as the gaffer, helping out one of my daughters. She was producing this 2-day thing, and this young cinematographer from New York came out, and he was all over the place. And I just stood there and I was just going, I followed him, what he was doing, but every shot was set up different. I'm gonna set it at 4000. I'm gonna set it at 2800. And he was coloring in the camera itself, which was actually kind of cool. But you have to know where you are, or you'll get caught. There's no going back, because now it's imprinted.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something that I think is fascinating. At least for me, I learned on 16 millimeter, and then right when I got to college, the 5D came out and all that, and so a lot of those lessons carried over, but we didn't have color correction tools like at all. There was no, and so now I'm finding it more and more interesting using the camera almost as a straight up data collection device, because the look can be so manipulated in post to a degree. Obviously, like I'm not a big shift the white balance around guy. I kind of leave. I like treating the camera like a film stock,
Right.
kind of leaving it the way it is. But I'll create my LUT in Resolve or whatever, drop it in the camera. I actually created. I messed with the internal color response of the C500 to look more like an Alexa, to use it as a B cam, so that when you hop in Resolve, it's just a one-click solution. But the color tools, I'm just absolutely fascinated. I colored a couple features over the old pandemic because I wasn't shooting, and I've really come to appreciate how much fun it is.
Yeah, no, it is. That's something that there's so much money riding on these episodes. And I've got 4 cameras, and I did a couple of tests with this shooting some LED strips and some stero tubes, and how fast can I make the change, and will it send post into a tizzy,
Right.
So that it is something that I have to find out. With one camera, I think, or maybe 2, you can do something like that. But
yeah.
But with 4, I just, to have the DIT keep up with that, I think I'm just asking for trouble. And so I'll do it all, based on, okay, keep it at 2900, and I'll work around it using outside sources. And it seems like, right, for myself, that's much a little easier. But single camera, I'll do some playing,
Is there anything, any sort of tips or techniques that carry over from one style to the other, or vice versa, in terms of multicam versus single cam? Things that, especially working at that speed, I assume there's some sort of workflow kind of thing that single cam people could learn from.
Well, I think it's what's nice about single cam, that you can and what it comes down to is the lighting and the height of the lamp that you want to use. You can put it where you can put a lamp over there in single cam because you're shooting this way. But
right.
But in multicam, you've got the close-up over here, which is for sure in the middle of the side that you want to shoot, that this guy's got a single. So sometimes you've got to play with height, just really kind of look at, you don't need to light all the angles. If you can have one light do 3 things or 2 things and work within those angles, putting camera in for multi, that will help, and that gives you, if you can play it down. I'm going to say something. I'm up for another show also in the same category. And Last Man Standing. That I approached each show a little differently, and the clip that I entered for Last Man Standing, I know this about the Upshaws, but
oh no, it's about it's about everything. It's about you.
They were standing next to a window, so you've got somebody shooting through the window. You got Tim Allen, but then on the cross, Molly is looking out the window, but that lamp is just out of the window. You can't see it, but you can see the source coming in, and then she turns around. But I keyed her for this camera from upstage. So she was 3/4 keyed, but had a nice kick, which, okay, the window is my source. So that was something that was a filmic that I could do. You could do it with single camera. I could do it with multi-camera. I was able
Right.
to hide that lamp, and I'll always be aware of if that can get hidden and not look weird. Um, that was something that I guess caught the eye of our other peers, which
Yeah.
it's okay. We'll see what happens, you know.
Yeah, you've had I was giving a quick look through your IMDb, and I'm surprised that whole back wall isn't just statues.
Oh, yeah, well, that I've got a few in the living room, so
You got like per room. You're like, well, this is my favorite room, so 5 of them will go here, and then 2 of them are gonna go.
you know, we're always a little lucky, you know. During the 90s, I was doing the home improvement,
Yeah.
and that was a 5 camera show, but
Oh wow.
uh, we were using 4 pedestals, and it was really the first time that we used 4 peds and a jib. And so that being said, I, I told all the directors that came through, and we had to hide Wilson's face all the time. We had to get up and over
Right.
the fence, and said, we're going to need this. And so we did openings and closings and transitions to all the scenes live where the jib had to come in there. And so that was a really great way to uh, just make those types of shows a little different. And I look at some of the shots that we did, that it didn't get confusing. I told him, I said, wherever the jib needs to go, we're going to light her on it, and I'll make it happen. And so that was something that the jib first, we set the jib where it needed to be first, second, third, and then the other cameras would come in and pick up. And so we were very lucky during a lot of these other types, during those 5 or 6 years, 7 years that we were on. I won 6 out of the 7, I think, something like that.
Very nice. Well done.
Yeah, but you know, it was it's still a lot of fun. I still like, you know, it's nice to be recognized. It's all good.
Sure.
You know?
Well, and with this is something I was actually wondering, is the schedule of a a multicam show somehow less stressful? Because I feel like, because you know the set, you know where the lights are, you know it's there's less variables. Or am I mistaken?
Well, so you have a basic set. I know where those are, but you have to like the episode. So
Okay.
no two shows are like, everything is, there's a lot of stuff that's there. If I don't need it, I just turn it off.
Mm.
So I think that's really important. If you don't need it, turn it off. It's less problems. A lot of times I'll just take everything out, and if I just need a handful of units, then that would call for the scene, you know, especially in nighttime things. Or you've got the basic, but then you're dealing with sometimes 2 to 3 different swing sets that have to be dealt with. If you've got a Thursday, Friday show, and you're only on camera 2 days. So the production meeting is, like, for a Thursday, Friday shoot, is on Monday morning. And then what I will do then is talk with my gaffer. We don't know where they're playing. We just know if it's night or day. They haven't even put it on its feet. So we've got to put, as I call it, some meat and potatoes. So we don't overdo it, but I want to make sure that then I'll come in the afternoon before they leave, and I'll ask if they put it on its feet at all. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So then
We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. And you've got some long running shows that they don't, the main thing is not to be on stage and do a lot. you
Right.
know. So so that's sometimes tricky. Tuesday, I don't come in the morning. There'll be a 2 o'clock run through. They put it on its feet and it's just rough, and that's mostly for the producers. But at least it gives me an idea of where they're going. So Tuesday night, after everybody leaves, we've got the stage. I turn the music up, get the ambient, and then we kind of rough it in. That's probably the long evening. Wednesday, after we see the run through, the network comes in and they write off on what they've seen as far as acting wise. What's funny is producers don't really know what it looks like until it's Thursday when we're blocking. And so I really sometimes I don't get notes, because I'll get notes sometimes, but if you do get a note, have a B plan. Yeah, I always have a B plan if in case that happens, and you got to be, oh, okay, just a minute. Then I say, okay, now what am I going to do here? You know. Yeah. So that's and then Thursday is you block in the morning. Then that's when your actors are getting into makeup, and then you'll shoot a couple of scenes. And then Friday, same thing. But like all last year, it was all COVID, so it was all block and shoot. Which now I'm really comfortable with that. But now some of these shows are going to audiences, small audience, like from 200 to 75 people, and from 200 people to 75 people, doing a full live show on that second day. There are some shows, like last year, I did 2 shows. And so you're on camera Monday, Tuesday, but I'm jumping around with 2 separate crews, 2 separate everything, but I'm never on camera in 2 places at the same time. So, but I'm able to maneuver. Fortunately, last year there was 2 shows on the same lot. So that Last Man Standing and the Connors. The Upshaws was shot early on in 2000, and they pulled the plug on it after 7 episodes because of COVID. Everybody was down last year, and then everything started to rev up towards the end, around September, and so like the Connors is Monday, Tuesday, and then Upshaws or the Connors are Thursday, Friday. So a good swing day is Wednesday in the early morning for the Monday, Tuesday show. On Wednesday, a production meeting. It gets pretty hectic, but it's all good. It keeps you fresh.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like I could see how having a routine of some degree could make life a little bit less hectic.
Well, what was really hectic about it is each show has its own protocol with COVID, and being tested sometimes 5 days a week, because this show doesn't want to know about what you were tested with. They don't really care. They want to make sure that their test says no. So that was really kind of crazy, because everybody's all over town, and so you're driving to get the test, and it's got to be in certain time, and it's 6 a.m. So anyway,
your nasal cavities start to get aggressed.
Really.
Yeah. Well, we are up on time, which sucks, but this is a lot of fun. But the hour goes by so fast. I'm like, should I just start? No one wants to hear a 2-hour podcast, but I want to do a 2-hour podcast. Right. But I like to wrap up every podcast just kind of asking the same question to everyone, and that is, do you remember something in your life, either a life change or a piece of advice or something like that was given to you? It doesn't have to be the thing, but just the kind of the first thing that pops into your head that appreciably had an effect on your career.
I think what I do, and I've noticed that I try to pass it on to everybody is treat people as you would like to be treated.
Mm.
And I think that I can't do it by myself, and I'm so appreciative of my crews that I use, the people that I use, and I really look at that, how they treat their crews, and I'm these times are really little crazy in the last couple of years. I'm involved with Inclusive and committee for the Camera Guild. I'm chairman. And so seeing new young people come into the local, I'm really happy about, and they just need to be taught in such a way that they'll want to stay. And I just treat everybody that you would like to be treated, and that has gotten me through a lot of turmoil. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Hope I answered.
No, yeah, that's great. Is there anything else that you'd want to plug before we take off? Personal projects? I don't know.
Let me see. No, well, right now I'm starting up on next week. I've been off for about 3.5 months. The Connors, and I got. Okay, this has been an incredible. Real quick.
Yeah.
There were five entries for a multi-camera show, and I got 3 out of the 5, which is a trip. And I'm really, it's
hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's really hard to wrap my head around, and I just I'm a little embarrassed about it, and I'm proud about it, and my colleagues, I'm sure they're talking behind my back, and I don't know why that happened. Real quick, okay, the Academy wanted to kill the multi-camera category, and what they wanted to do was combine the single camera half hour and the multi-camera half hour together. And so there's a difference of...
This is so different.
So different. Our shows would be up against Mandalorian, and some of these really nice shows that, I would like to be part of.
Sure.
And there'd be no way that the Upshaws could, against Mandalorian. That just is just not fair, and it's not right. Yeah. So we all kind of put in 2 shows. I put in 3 shows, and I was really surprised they gave us five entries, that there were 5 eligible Emmys, and to have 3 out of the 5 come up, I'm blown out. I'm a little embarrassed, but I'm not sure. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't pitch, and
Hey, listen, coach gets credit,
Oh, man. But other than that, that's the only pitch, maybe if you have a look, you see 3 different looks. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Don, thanks so much for spending the hour with me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. And be safe, and stay in focus.
Yeah. Nice. You too, man.
All right.
Take care.
Peace.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. Our theme song is written and performed by Mark Pelly, and the F&R Mapbox logo was designed by Nate Truax of Truax Branding Company. You can read or watch the podcast you've just heard by going to provideocoalition.com or youtube.com/owlbot, respectively. And as always, thanks for listening.